Now the latest ITV News in London with Duncan Golestani.
Tonight, anger at leaked proposals for Grenfell Tower. Survivors have criticised suggestions the tower could soon be demolished without their approval.
We were promised at the beginning that the bereaved survivors and local community were going to be at the heart of the decision-making process, and we're being ignored.
Also tonight, the family of Jermaine Baker, who was shot dead by police, highlight what they call a litany of failures and demand officers face more scrutiny. A friend's memories of singer Sarah Harding and how he hopes her legacy lives on following her death. Pressure on the mayor to improve cycle safety at some of London's most dangerous junctions and...
Hello. I do feel like they're looking at me.
Sally's been seal counting, but it's not all plain sailing for London's visitors. Good evening. A survivor of the Grenfell Tower fire has been telling ITV News that he's shocked and saddened by reports that the building could soon be demolished over safety concerns. Many of those who were caught up in the fire or lost loved ones had been promised that no decision would be taken on its future without their full consultation. Several are calling for a permanent memorial to remember the lives of the 72 people killed. From West London, Rags Martel reports.
Wrapped in plastic, hiding a tragedy, Grenfell is covered up, keeping the tower's charred remains out of sight. But it could now be torn down as the government fears it's unstable.
So what's your reaction to the government saying they want to take this down?
Shock, anger and sadness. We were promised at the beginning that the bereaved survivors and local community were going to be at the heart of the decision-making process. And
pressure grows on the Prime Minister ahead of an expected announcement tomorrow.
From the 16th floor. But a year before the fire, he co-wrote a blog warning of a catastrophic event.
In a gully.
Like many survivors, he's unhappy at how the government's handling the tower's fate.
We haven't been consulted. The same problems that kind of surfaced before the fire, where they used to do things to us rather than with us, have reappeared again. And, we have to learn about the future of the tower out of an article in a Sunday newspaper rather than through direct dialogue.
The decision to take down the tower is reportedly a done deal. Surveyors working for the government say it's unsafe and could even pose a risk to nearby buildings.
The safety of the school at the foot of the tower is mentioned, but many survivors believe the government is just trying to get rid of the site of Grenfell.
I don't know whether to believe them or not. I mean, trust is at a premium with the government, obviously. Since the fire almost, we've been told that the building behind us is the safest unsafe building in the world. So for them to suddenly turn around and say that it's in fact an unsafe building that needs to come down is just confusing.
The government denies a final decision has been taken, but says it is considering the safety concerns raised by structural engineers. Some survivors, though, wanted this, the tower to remain and converted into a high-rise memorial garden with 72 different types of flower to match the number of people who died at Grenfell.
On a very personal level, I would like them to strip the shroud, and I would like the building to remain naked, stark testament to the crimes that were perpetrated against this community on the 14th of June 2017. You ask half a dozen other people, you'll get half a dozen other answers.
Grenfell already has an unofficial memorial. By the tower, the names of those who died are not forgotten.
Rags, really very sensitive news ahead of the return of the inquiry tomorrow.
That's right, Duncan. The inquiry returns from its summer break tomorrow, and for survivors, this adds to the anger of this announcement. Why, they say, is the government suddenly concerned about Grenfell when there are literally hundreds of other buildings with flammable cladding and other safety problems still on them 4 years after the fire? And that's where the government's focus should be, say survivors, and not the demolition of the tower.
OK, Rags, thank you. The family of an unarmed man who was shot dead by police 6 years ago say officers should face more scrutiny after describing a litany of failures following the death of their son. Jermaine Baker was killed during a foiled attempt to free an inmate from prison close to Wood Green Crown Court in 2015. But as an independent inquiry into the incident draws to a close, Jermaine's mum believes officers didn't do enough to prevent his death. Sam Holder reports.
Jermaine Baker's family have never questioned that he was in the wrong, that he should have gone to jail. What they question is why he was shot dead by police. In 2015, the 28-year-old was part of a plot to break out a prisoner being transferred to Wood Green Court. The police knew of the plan. Their stolen car was bugged. His family believe he was unlawfully killed and that the police breached his human rights.
You listen to the news, and you're thinking, oh my God, some poor mother's going to be mourning their child tonight. Little did I know that mother was me. Everything needs to be brought out in the open so change can start happening. There's been so many unarmed people died at the hands of the police, and they sort of make up sort of justification to it, and then it's gone. It's been swept under the carpet. That's not going to happen with Jermaine, because we'll make sure of that.
The inquiry into his death heard accusations of failures, errors, arrogance and incompetence by the police, like allowing the crime to begin before arresting the group so they'd get longer sentences. The Metropolitan Police said that acting earlier would only mitigate the risk in the very short term and potentially lead to greater harm in the future. According to one officer, police feared there would be New York-style mafia shootings on the streets of London if the group weren't put in jail. Police had intelligence that they had this fake Uzi, but that they didn't have a real gun. Jermaine Baker's family say he was complying with the order to put his hands up when he was shot. This recreation shows how close the officer's gun was, just 50 centimetres away. The police say there was a risk the group could have sourced a real weapon.
I definitely believe that the police should be policed. I definitely believe that they have so much responsibility, and by the standards that we've seen in this inquiry, people, top-end officers are not up to it. They don't know what they need to be doing, and this is really concerning for other people's safety. I would never want a family to go through what we've gone through.
Tia and Margaret have waited nearly 6 years for this inquiry. It only came about when the Home Secretary ordered it take place. It finishes this week, and they hope the answers which come out will lead to more scrutiny of the police in the future. Sam Holder, ITV News.
The rapper Wiley has been charged with assault and burglary after allegedly attacking a man at a flat in East London. The incident happened at a property in Forest Gate last week. He'll appear in court charged with the offences next Monday. And this morning was the busiest rush hour on the tube since the first national lockdown. Transport for London says there were more than 800,000 taps before 10 a.m, the highest figure since March 2020. The Prime Minister has promised to do everything possible to provide a safe passage to anyone wanting to leave Afghanistan. He was speaking in the House of Commons as MPs debate the UK's response to the Taliban takeover. Boris Johnson's promises are some comfort to the families here trying to help loved ones stuck in the country. But as Martin Stew reports, many still say they need more help.
In Feltham, the queues of desperate people trying to get help for their loved ones in Afghanistan show no sign of disappearing. Today, there were plenty of donated toys, but hardly any hope.
So this letter's from the Taliban warning them to stop working in TV?
Yeah.
So the Taliban know who they are?
Yes.
This man's mum and sisters are in hiding. They daren't leave their building, let alone get to a neighbouring country to seek asylum.
What do you worry will happen to them?
They'll be dead. They'll be killed. I will requesting for Home Office, who really needs help, who really have documents, really have problems, they need to be out of Afghanistan.
7,000 people have sought help from the Afghanistan and Central Asian Centre in Feltham in the last 3 weeks. This afternoon, they watched Boris Johnson's first statement in Parliament about the crisis.
And we shall insist on safe passage for anyone who wishes to leave and respect for the rights of women and girls, and use every economic, political and diplomatic lever to protect our own countries from harm and to help the Afghan people.
They could definitely be doing more because these are just discussions. We need it implemented in society and they will need a lot of help here.
I'm really happy that Boris Johnson has announced that there will be 300 scholarships going out to the Afghan refugees settling here. You know, let's see how far this can go and if the promises are actually kept.
In Acton, the Society for Afghan Residents are helping 11-year-old Arash settle in.
What are you looking forward to most about living in England?
Becoming a scientist.
Arash was on one of the last civilian flights out of Kabul. His dad worked for the British Army. Many of his pals haven't been so lucky.
Why do you worry for some of your friends?
Because of Taliban, of the fathers, yes. They were policemen. I'm worried that Taliban will go at the door and kill them or something like that. I'm worried about them.
That's a lot to think about for someone who's 11 and a half, isn't it?
Yes.
Arash taught himself English. Other refugees will need more support. His new MP says the government must do more.
I mean, the government talks a great talk about how it's got all these thousands of people out, but there's a lot of people still left behind in very desperate situations. I mean, at the moment, everyone just feels like everything's going in a black hole and we're banging our heads against a brick wall.
Boris Johnson has promised not to abandon any allies, but with the Taliban calling the shots, it will be a testing time ahead. Martin Stew, ITV News.
Some of Sarah Harding's former Girls Aloud bandmates have posted tributes to their friend who died yesterday, aged 39, from breast cancer. For more than 10 years, she was one of the faces of a band that produced 20 top 10 hits and sold more than 4 million records. Her bandmate Cheryl today described Sarah as quirky, kind and soft-hearted. While Kimberly Walsh wrote, "Hearing your infectious chuckle was one of my favourite things in the world. Your fire burned so bright and you loved, lived and laughed so hard." It follows a post by Nicola Roberts who said, "Electric Girl, you made us," while Nadine Coyle wrote simply that she was devastated. Well, Sophie Dopiorala-Bull from the charity Copper Feel is joining me now to talk about the devastating effects of breast cancer. First of all, of course, this wasn't entirely unpredictable given how ill Sarah was, but still, in some ways, shocking and very, very sad.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's always really sad when we hear the news that somebody has died of breast cancer. Unfortunately, that's reality when you're diagnosed at the later stages, such as Sarah's diagnosis. For us at Copperfield, our main mission is to encourage everybody to start self-checking, to be educated on the signs and symptoms, and empowered to go to their GP if they spot something that's unusual. And we are trying to get that message out specifically to younger people and to young women, because we know there just isn't enough awareness out there.
In terms of Sarah, she had said that she delayed seeing her doctor because of the pandemic. Is that something that you're seeing or you have seen increasingly over the last year and a half?
Yes, certainly something that through the research we've done amongst younger people and young women in particular, we know that during the pandemic, 1 in 5 would have delayed going to see their GP with concerns due to the fear of catching coronavirus. So we definitely know that there's more reassurance that needs to be out there for younger people in particular to feel confident to go to present. But that's why the NHS is launching campaigns such as the NHS Help Us Help You campaign. We're also trying to do our best to make sure that people are aware that if you have any concerns, the GP wants to see you. They are open again, they are making everything really safe, and that's the best kind of course of action to take, is to kind of phone your GP and book that appointment.
OK, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us, Sophie.
Thank you.
There is still plenty more to come, including something to declare. London's Paralympic athletes arrive back, weighed down with medals, and why the seal population of the Thames could be in danger. Next tonight, the Mayor of London is under increasing pressure to improve road safety for cyclists at one junction in the capital after 4 people were killed there in separate incidents. The most recent was paediatrician Dr Marta Kravietz, who was on her way to work when she was hit by a lorry on Theobald's Road near Holborn Station. One of her colleagues and campaigner have been telling Helen Keenan that warnings about the dangerous spot have been ignored for long enough.
With several busy lanes and blind spots, it's already been recognised this junction in Holborn needs to be made safer. Last month, Dr Marta Kravietz died in a crash with an HGV here, while cycling along Southampton Row to Theobald's Road.
Since 2008, 4 cyclists have died at this junction, and Marta was the 8th person to lose her life in that time near Holborn Station.
Almost £10 million in funding was promised for safety measures, but that's been delayed due to the pandemic. Campaigners left frustrated by this say they plan to demonstrate here this week.
We're hoping for hundreds of people. We've done this before, we had to do it in 2018.
Premier League
doing it
starts
again.
tonight at 9 on BBC Two and iPlayer.
Already 6 people had died before that money was even allocated. So we're just baffled at why the change is so slow when people are losing their lives.
At 9 on BBC
Action
Two and
coming
iPlayer.
not only from campaigners, but also from Marta's colleagues, who have written to the Mayor of London calling for immediate road safety improvements.
The patients really loved and adored her, and we've seen that in the months since she's passed, the letters of outpouring and the emotion and the grief. So we're extremely frustrated with this whole event. This was a preventable fatality.
So in October 2018, we introduced changes to that part of London.
It's a subject Sadiq Khan's also been questioned on by London Assembly members, who are calling for a precise timetable for action.
You questioned the Mayor at the London Assembly. What did you make of his responses?
I was hugely disappointed. 3 years ago, I asked the Mayor about this very junction after another doctor has sadly been killed. And 3 years on, there has been little or no action.
TfL say their funding was to be released over several years and raised from future income. But when the pandemic put paid to fares, they were unable to find the cash. They're hoping for more central government funding in December.
What we're also looking at with Camden is in the coming 6 to 8 weeks is some rapid delivery, lower cost improvements that we can afford that should hopefully make things safer for cyclists.
While campaigners welcome those safety measures, they say more are needed to stop more cyclists losing their lives. Helen Keenan, ITV News.
Now, in the Tokyo Games, we saw plenty of successes, but one family from Surrey are celebrating a huge milestone for their loved one and their community. That's because John Boy Smith from West Kingsdown became the first ever Romany traveller to represent Great Britain's Paralympics team. His partner, Corrie, is now eagerly awaiting his return this evening. Antoine Allen went to meet her.
John Smith, aka John Boy, had already made history before he lined up at the start of the T54 marathon at the Tokyo Paralympics. The wheelchair racer was the first traveller from the Romany community to represent Paralympics GB. John Boy's partner feels he is a role model to their children and his community.
They are so proud. There's banners everywhere. I think if you see along West Kingsdown, there's banners everywhere. And he's always said it doesn't matter what race, colour, wherever you're from, it doesn't matter. You can, as long as you have the right mindset to do it, you can do it.
Before competing on the road, John Boy previously turned his hand to powerlifting, javelin and shot put, but he found success over the 42-kilometre race, securing a silver medal at the 2018 Commonwealth Games. During the lockdown, John Boy was literally lifting these weights in this shed to keep his Tokyo Olympic dream going. He knew the criteria was strict. He literally wrote it on his wall. But this is a man that's had to overcome so much in his career. The positive words on his wall represent his own inspiration, how he wants to inspire others.
He loves helping children. That's what he wants to do. He just wants to inspire anyone that they can do anything.
Let's go, John Boy! During the T54 marathon, John Boy's glove broke, but he still managed to finish 10th in his fastest time of the season. His coach, Christine Parslow, knew nothing would stop him completing his Paralympic dream.
Many would have stopped and given up, but not John Boy. No, he keeps going.
he keeps going and he pushes.
John Boy's goal was to bring home a medal from Tokyo, but his equipment let him down. Yet his unbreakable self-belief means he's already aiming to make history at the next Paralympics and become Paralympic GB's first Romani Olympic medalist. Antoine Allen, ITV News.
Well, John Boy Smith is just one of the athletes on board a flight that's arriving back at Heathrow Airport from Tokyo in the next hour. There they are, enjoying first class. With them, they bring a total of 124 medals, which helped Paralympics GB end up in second place on the medal table. Someone already back is swimmer Hannah Russell with her gold and bronze medals, and she joins me now. Hello, Hannah. How are you feeling now it's all over?
I'm absolutely amazed being back home. I'm still trying to reflect on my performance. I was absolutely delighted to retain my Paralympic title and achieve a bronze medal in the 100-metre freestyle. I'm, back home now with my family. I've got a little bit of time off, so I'm going to really enjoy that.
How are you going to enjoy it? What are you going to do? Not swimming, surely.
Yeah, so I'm back home in Surrey, in my family home, and I'm going to really enjoy meeting up with friends, meeting up with family. I'm planning on going away for a city break and just going into schools as well. One thing I really enjoy is giving back to people, and I'm going to focus on going into primary schools and, showing my medals and trying to inspire the younger generation.
Oh, I'm sure that will be appreciated. After Rio, your successes in Rio 5 years ago, you took some time out, didn't you, to work on your mental health, and you really felt that was important. When you look back, what difference do you think that made to you and what that meant for you in Tokyo?
For me in Tokyo, it was really important to focus on my mental health going back. So after 2016, I made sure I really had to focus on my mental health. I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression in 2019, and for me it was really important to take a couple of months out and focus on my mental health. And for me it was the best thing which I ever did. I had to have a focus, and I really focused on my sports science degree. I was a third year graduation student, and I really had to focus on completing my degree, and I managed to achieve a first class honours, which was brilliant, and it was such a great achievement for me to overcome. And I had the support of British Swimming, the support of my family, and I wanted to go to Tokyo. I'd missed my love for swimming, and I managed to get that back, and it was amazing to be able to go on that journey with my family and achieve my Paralympic title back in 2020.
Brilliant, Hannah. Well done. And wonderful to see the support you've got with that fantastic flag behind
This
you.
is
Hannah
BBC
Russell.
One
Thank
Wales. Good evening. Now the BBC News at 6 o'clock.
A
Sophie
football
Rayworth
World Cup
and
qualifier
Nick
in Brazil had to be abandoned last night after 4 players, 2 from Tottenham Hotspur, were accused of breaking the country's COVID rules. Just minutes into the match, health officials came out onto the pitch. Spurs' Christian Romero and Giovanni Lo Celso are among 4 players accused of lying on their pre-flight declaration forms. Sangeeta Candola reports on the unprecedented pitch invasion.
Football fans hoping for high drama at the Brazil-Argentina World Cup qualifier certainly got it.
This is pure speculation whether those officials are from the Brazilian Public Health.
Minutes into the match, a pitch invasion by Brazilian health officials, trying to deport 4 Argentinian players who also play in the English Premier League, alleging they skipped isolation rules.
They say they weren't complying with Brazilian health regulations regarding the COVID pandemic.
What followed was sideline squabbling and what appeared to be minor altercations between some players and the health officials. After a few minutes, the match was abandoned and the players ushered back through the tunnel. Argentina's captain Lionel Messi stepped in to negotiate on behalf of the footballers in question, whilst fans leaving the stadium were left stunned and in the dark about what had happened.
Nobody had a clue. I thought, what's going on?
I feel rage and sadness for what has happened.
Tottenham's Christian Romero and Giovanni Lo Celso, and Aston Villa's Emiliano Martinez and Emiliano Buendia, according to officials, failed to complete 14 days quarantine. The 4 players are now off Brazilian soil, but face fines from authorities there and questions from their Premier League teams back here. Sangeeta Kandola, ITV News.
On to the weather now, and the temperature is going to keep on rising. Here's Manali Luca with the forecast.
Making the most of it, whatever the weather. Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
Hello there, good evening to you. Summer is trying to fight back for a few days at least. Over the next couple of days, it's looking dry, sunny and hot across London and the southeast. That's because we've got high pressure in charge sitting to the east of us, allowing for some warm air to move up from the near continent. Tomorrow we're expecting to see highs of around 30 degrees Celsius, probably the hottest day of the week, but still on Wednesday 29 degrees likely. And then on Wednesday night we're going to see some changes. Low pressure will start to push up from the southwest. We'll see some thundery downpours through Wednesday night into Thursday, and then we hold on to that unsettled theme as we head towards the end of the week, with temperatures starting to cool off as well. But back to the here and now. A fine evening to come. Largely clear skies, just some patchy cloud drifting in at times. With light winds, we could see some pockets of mist and fog patches come dawn. Quite a warm, muggy night ahead. Overnight lows of 17, 18 degrees. So any early mist and fog first thing tomorrow morning will clear very quickly. And thereafter, stunning blue skies. The winds stay light and temperatures in that sunshine will rise. As I mentioned, highs of 29, 30 degrees Celsius. Worth mentioning, the sun's still pretty strong at this time of year. On Wednesday, another fine day, plenty of sunshine, warm temperatures once again. But then on Wednesday night into Thursday, we're going to start to see that breakdown. Thundery downpours moving up from the southwest, and we'll continue with the risk of showers as we head towards Thursday and Friday. Temperatures you can see starting to cool off as well. Have a good evening.
Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
Finally tonight, when it comes to travelling during the pandemic, some of the mammals we see in the Thames haven't had any problems hopping from country to country. But there's now a warning that the number of seals visiting the capital from overseas have declined due to an increase in human activity on the water. It was highlighted in the annual seal count, which Sally went along to.
It's not a bad office for the morning and not a bad view. It feels a long way out from London here in Ramsgate, but this is actually the Thames estuary, and it doesn't take long to find what we're looking for.
Hello. Hello. I do feel like they're looking at me.
Quite friendly. Every single one's got a different character. We've got the odd one who thinks he's a porpoise and or a dolphin, and he'll be showing off.
The annual seal count has been taking place since 2013 by the Zoological Society of London. The numbers of grey and common seals are counted when they're molting and more likely to be found sunning it on the sand.
Some of these seals may well have travelled further than you and me this year, maybe popping over to Belgium or up the coast, and some will have gone more than 60 miles all the way up the Thames as far as Teddington.
And their numbers help tell the story of the river.
They are a high predator, they feed on fish in the estuary, and they tell us that the Thames is full of life. A lot of people will look at the Thames and see brown, murky waters and think that means that it's dirty and there's no life, but actually it is full of life.
Until now, numbers have been increasing, but they couldn't count last year due to the pandemic, so this year is important. And anecdotally, more people on various boats and paddleboards have been coming to see and potentially scaring the seals.
So you think that people are impacting the seals? They're sort of putting them off, maybe as many coming in?
Yes, I do believe that, because we see incline in water activity up here and a decline within the seals up here within the river.
Well, this week the official results came in, and this is what they show.
Since last year we've seen what suggests a slight decline in harbour seal numbers, but for us, the importance is that is in the long-term picture. So we have to remember that when we do these surveys, it's a snapshot of a few days in the year, and there's also environmental factors at play. So obviously a point of interest, but something that we want to look at over the long term.
In fact, the numbers of grey seals have declined too. They'll now look into why and keep everything crossed for next year. Meanwhile, it was back to the shore for me. A bit of a damp one, but worth it. Sally Williams, ITV News in the Thames Estuary.
And that is it for now. We're back with the latest after news at 10. Coming up, Mary Nightingale with the evening news. But from me and the rest of the London team, have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.